What is up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Welcome to the Palazzo Podcast, 2Ls, 2Zs. Mike, Virginia, joined by two special guests with me today, Tyler London and Andrew. Andrew, you don't have a last name, but what's your last name?
DeSegli.
DeSegli. All right. Andrew DeSegli and Tyler London joining me today for the Week 23 preview show, taking your questions anytime during the live cast here. If you guys have questions, drop them in the live chat. Happy to get them up on the screen here and get those answered by myself, Tyler, and Andrew. Before we begin, I do want to do a quick introduction for those of you guys who are new here. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're on our quest to 1,000 subscribers. Please steal your girlfriend, your wife, your husbands, your grandmothers, your mothers, whoever, steal their phones, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're trying to get to 1,000. All right. So let's go around the horn here real quick. Just tell us a little bit more about yourself. Andrew, what's up, man? Welcome to the Palazzo Podcast and your debut.
I appreciate you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Nice to finally get on with you guys. I'm a writer over at Sports Ethos with Tyler, senior writer over there. I run a fantasy baseball account. You know, we got daily ads over there, pickups. My big thing is the notables. I don't know if you guys tuned in and seen those, but I do trade articles, stuff like that. You know, just trying to keep it pushing, make the account grow a little bit. Nice to finally get on here.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And super happy to have you. If you guys aren't already following Andrew on Twitter, aka X, make sure you guys do that at Andrew_FBB. Great account to follow, especially for everything fantasy baseball related. Literally, you guys have to be following him. Fastest growing account on Twitter. Dude knows his stuff. Really happy to have him on here. Tyler, Backpick Fantasy here, joins us again. Tyler London, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man, good to see you. Mike, Andrew, excited to be here on another Sunday. You know, prepared to watch some baseball and hang out all day. www.sportsethos.com. I'm one of the senior writers with Andrew. Come out with a hot ad article on Sundays that'll be dropping today. Also a bullpen article that I come out with every week because I'm kind of obsessed with bullpens and fantasy baseball. Super niche, but it's a good article. And then, Backpick Fantasy Twitter account, really focusing on hot ads, players on the cut line, drops, daily account. And follow Andrew. He's great. Definitely the fastest growing fantasy baseball account out there for the right reasons. And his nightly notables are amazing. It's basically quick hits, recapping big happenings of the day with players and their statistics, also with some really good underlying stats to back it up. So super glad to have you, Andrew, and meet you face to face finally.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, again, having three people on the show is obviously a good time here. We all love talking baseball. That's why we do what we do for a living, right, guys?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I appreciate all the love, man. I've got everyone hyping up my account. I appreciate it. You guys got great work going on too.
No problem, man. Yeah, we're super happy to have you. We're going to be talking a lot about Week 23 preview here coming up. A couple guys that both myself, Andrew, and Tyler that we'd like for next week. We'll be talking about the hitter matchups, the schedule for next week, et cetera, et cetera. But before we do that, I want to go around the horn really quickly. Andrew, how are you doing in all your fantasy baseball leagues?
Struggling in one. A lot of injuries hitting me this time of year, as it always does for me, I feel like. But one league I'm in first place, and the other one I'm pushing strong in a wild card spot. But injuries have always been my downfall. But right now we're pushing strong.
What's your format of choice? Like what kind of formats do you play in?
ESPN is 2, and then I have one over at Fantrax, which is my dynasty league.
Okay. It's like a head-to-head points, categories, roto?
Head-to-head. Yeah, head-to-head categories.
Nice, man. So a fellow head-to-head Cats guy, right? Me and Govier, that's how we first started in the fantasy baseball world, and we still hold true in our home leagues with the head-to-head Cats. So it's nice to have another Cats guy on board. So awesome. Tyler, how you doing in your leagues, man? How's everything going?
Yeah, so I'm in 6 leagues somehow and holding it down on those right now. My home roto league, which is super competitive. Lots of guys that I know from high school or college, and there's all these like finance, business numbers guys in it. So it's super insane. But I'm in second in that. I can't quite bridge the gap towards the guy in first. He's anywhere from like 10 to 12 roto points above me. I can cut it to 8. And then I assume he pulls out all these spreadsheets and makes 2 or 3 ads and then, back down to minus 12 or something. And then I'm in a fair amount of head-to-head. I'm sitting in the playoffs and all of those. I'm really excited about one of those leagues with my team. I really think I can win it all. I think I'm the strongest team there. It's a very reliever heavy build. I have like 5 bench bats, so it's like filling in on those Thursdays and Mondays because I'm not as focused on streaming starting pitchers to get active bats in there. So that league, it's a 10-teamer. 4 teams make playoffs. So, and it's 2-week playoffs per matchup. So that's going to start, I think, the week after next. So really excited for that one. But yeah, I'm in the hunt in all 6 of my leagues. So I'm hoping to at least get 1 trophy. And, that's what we do it for. So I'm really excited.
There you go, man. Well, I'm pulling for you boys. I hope you guys are able to pull out some championships. Hopefully there's some money involved that you guys can win. But yeah, for me, I was just telling the boys right before we got live here, I'm reeling through some injuries right now. Mike Trout obviously killed me. That's why I went and grabbed Nolan Jones. If you guys tuned into last week's show, Tyler and I talked about him. And I also lost Felix Bautista this week. So I was 8 games out of first. I play in a head-to-head Cats league and my home league there. And it's been killing me. That's my big money league. And just it's been killing me. So I'm hoping to pivot here and try to find some guys on the wire. And that's what this show is about. Maybe I'll learn something from Andrew and Tyler today. And I'll go out and grab my wire here and grab some guys that can kind of fill the void. So without further ado, I want to talk about this week in review before we jump in. It looks like we got a couple questions coming in. We got one here from BZA, RZA, GZA. Rank these 2 start pitchers next week between Oviedo, Severino, and Jameson Taillon. Oviedo at Kansas City, at St. Louis, Severino at Detroit and Houston, and Taillon versus Milwaukee and Cincy. Tyler, we'll hand it over to you, buddy. Who do you like the most out of this group?
I like Oviedo out of this group. Simply, I like the matchups, and he had a good last start. He's someone that can go 6 innings, and he has a fair amount of strikeouts. I think over 140 for the year sometime right now. So he's getting some decent volume. Severino, yep. I like his upside. We know when he's really good, he's on, but he's been paltry this year. Taillon, I just don't trust Taillon. I've been burned by him a lot of times. His K rate's not really there. However, he's kind of has a safe floor when he's on. He can do a quality start. So I kind of have Oviedo and Taillon first 2, and then Severino third. Slight lean Oviedo there. They're not guys that I necessarily like, but with the 2 starts, I assume you're hunting for wins and Ks. So like a Oviedo at Kansas City on paper looks nice, and St. Louis isn't good this year. So yeah, that's what I got.
Cool. Andrew, who are you going with here, man?
Same as Tyler for the first. I'm going Oviedo there. I really like the length he's shown in some games. He's shown ability to go deep. He's pretty young. Nice whiff percentages across the board in some of those starts. I'm a Yankees fan, so I'm going to say Severino's last for me. I can't bear to watch him anymore. He's been so bad this year, and I loved him when he first came up. And facing Houston, that's not a good recipe for the Yankees, so he's probably going to get bombarded in that game. I'll go Taillon at 2. He's struggled too a little bit. I've got burned by him as well, but I trust him a bit more than Severino going deep into the game, maybe getting a quality start in there, hopefully in one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm across the board here. I'm going Oviedo first, especially with the matchup at Kansas City and St. Louis. Like we had already mentioned, not very good. Severino is coming off a pretty solid start recently, but Detroit's actually been playing a lot better recently in terms of just scoring some runs. So I'm not confident in rolling him out there for a 2-start week. And as Andrew already alluded to, against Houston, I'm staying far away from that. And then Taillon versus Milwaukee and Cincy. Both those guys are hunting, or both those teams are hunting for a playoff spot. So it's going to be a tough matchup. He's got to be on his P's and Q's if he wants to come out of there with a win. But yeah, I think it's Oviedo across the board here in terms of who we prefer here. However you pronounce your handle there, BZA, RZA, GZA. Questions are coming in hot. Keep it up, boys. I appreciate it. Make sure you guys, if you're new here, make sure you follow us. I'll even get rid of the comment here. Make sure you follow me, EbKB Fantasy, for Andrew at Andrew_FBB, and Tyler London at Backpick Fantasy. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. We really, really appreciate it. Fogs says, "What's up, boys? How you doing, man?" James Coffey says, in a roto league for playoffs, would you prefer outfielder Michael Harris or Charlie Blackmon with the Rockies' home schedule? Thank you for your thoughts. I'll start, James. For me, it's Michael Harris, and it's not particularly close either. Just because, again, playing in the Braves lineup, that's fantasy gold right now. And again, he's been playing better recently. I get the temptation with Charlie Blackmon. He's been hitting pretty well over the past couple of weeks, and again, those home schedule in September is intriguing. But it's Michael Harris for me. But Andrew, we'll flip it over to you, man. Who are you taking there?
Yeah, I'm the same way. Harris by a landslide for me. A lot of people were getting frustrated with Harris early. He was playing through a rough injury. He's given you every category. Playing, like you said, playing in the Braves lineup is just a plus for every hitter there. Yeah, I'm taking Harris all day here.
Cool. Tyler, what about you, man?
Yeah, I'll third that. Michael Harris for me, 5-cat coverage, elite bat. He was going in the second, third round, early fourth this year for, good reasons. Slow start, but he's really picked it up. Top 50 over the last month, according to Yahoo's Player Rater for Standard Cat and Roto Leagues. Blackmon, it's really interesting what he's doing this year. It's what he does every year. He kind of gives you 4-cat production across the board. With that batting average potentially elite, the other 3 cats runs, RBI, kind of middle class, upper middle class. They have a lot of home games, so he's a guy, if you can get in your lineup for someone else, it would make sense, but it's not particularly close for me either. Michael Harris here, slam dunk.
Cool. Excellent. James says, thanks. No problem, man. Appreciate you joining and being here today. Appreciate the question. If you got any more, keep them coming. Drop them in the live chat. Next question comes from Adam Lee. I got to figure out how to get Ke'Bryan Hayes in my lineup on a heater, but could I bench Royce, McLean, Ellie, Walker, Semien, or CJ for him? I assume you're talking about CJ Abrams. Tyler, flip it over to you. Who do you like here?
If it's Jordan Walker, I could see myself getting Hayes in the lineup for Jordan Walker, but if it's Christian Walker, I would play all those guys that you listed, Royce, McLean, Ellie, Christian Walker, Semien, and CJ over Hayes, unless you can manage not getting the steals from CJ, because CJ's average is kind of volatile. So maybe for CJ Abrams, but I really think the steals cat upside with CJ is more valuable than Hayes. Hayes is good. He's a good stabilizing guy, maybe in a Yahoo 2 utility player league to slot in one of the last parts of your lineup. But if it's Christian Walker, I pretty much prefer all those guys over Ke'Bryan Hayes. Although Hayes is on a heater, got to ride the hot hand. And, if any of those guys really start to slump to start the week and you're in a daily change league, I could see myself slotting him in there too. Yeah.
Cool. Andrew, what say you, man? What are you doing here?
I think here I'm going to bench CJ for him. He's been struggling over the last month. I think he's batting around like 220, something like that. Like Tyler said, if you could afford to miss out on the steals too, I think Hayes has always shown good batted ball numbers. So I think that's who I'd play over him. The rest of the guys, like Tyler said, those are all really solid options, and I wouldn't think about benching any other guys that you named.
Yeah, I'm with you guys across the board there. The only person I would say that you could really bench here is CJ for Ke'Bryan Hayes. I personally like the steals. I've always been a steals guy. It's worth noting too that Abrams has been hitting for a little bit of pop recently too. I think he's got 2 home runs this week. But also, I haven't really done a deep dive yet in terms of the schedule. It looks like they have Toronto next week in Toronto for CJ Abrams. I don't know who the Pirates start off next week with, but I would also be cognizant of matchups and who these guys are facing too. So for me, you can't bench McLean, Ellie, Christian Walker, or Semien. I think those are all staples for me. So it really becomes between Ke'Bryan Hayes, Royce Lewis, and CJ Abrams. So again, play the matchup, see who's facing where, if they're playing somewhere like in hitter friendly ballpark. Again, all of those factors come into play here. But it's between CJ Abrams and Ke'Bryan Hayes for me. And again, I'm probably sticking with what you have and maybe plugging Hayes in to a spot if CJ Abrams is out of the lineup or they're facing a tough matchup. So appreciate the question, Adam. Next question comes from, we got a lot of questions coming here in the live chat, man. This is great. Jacob, are we at the point where we can drop struggling hitters like Dansby, Swanson if we're in win now mode? I'll start with this one. I've said it on the past couple of shows here, actually for the past, I'd say couple weeks, is if you're in the playoffs right now and there's a guy that you're you're hesitant on starting or you're not playing him and there's a positional need that you need. We're at the point in the season with playoffs around the corner, especially coming up with September. If there's a guy on your waiver wire and you're playing a shallow format and you want to drop somebody like Dansby Swanson for a positional or categorical need, I'm fine with that. But at the same time, too, I'm probably not dropping Dansby Swanson. The Cubs are in a playoff hunt here, too. I know he's struggling right now, but again, it really depends on who's on your waiver wire. I know that's a boring answer, but that would be some useful information before I give you my decision in terms of who you're dropping him for. But what say you guys? Andrew, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I don't think I'm dropping Dansby. He's up to almost 20 home runs in the season. I'm kind of the opposite, as you just described in a way. I'm usually like die by the guys I drafted and live and die by it. Those are the guys I was rocking with on draft day. There's no reason to make a change because I know personally, as soon as I'd make that change, that player would go on a heater as soon as they touch the waiver wire.
Yep.
So I mean, he's had a bad month, Dansby, but 20 home runs in the season. He has had a solid year overall. So I think rocking with him the rest of the way would probably benefit you more than picking up a waiver wire bat or something like that along those lines.
Yeah, I totally agree. And let me ask you this question too, Andrew. If he plays in a shallower format, and Jacob, feel free to drop it in the live chat too, if there's some guys that you're considering. If he plays in a shallow format, and there's a guy maybe that's producing a little bit, maybe like a Matt McLain or something along those lines, or a Ha-Seong Kim or somebody who's going to be able to give you more of like a 5-cat. I mean, I hope those guys are owned in those leagues. But you know, for a guy like that, would you be okay with dropping Dansby Swanson for somebody who, again, maybe he needs a pitcher or maybe he needs a hitter in a shallower format?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a price that comes with it. If there's always a guy that you could justify dropping him for, like you said, like Kim, anybody like that that's going to give you 5-cat upside, I would absolutely do it. But I would assume I would hope they were picked up. If they're not, can I please join that league? I would love to.
All three of us would. Good deal. Tyler, what are you doing with Dansby Swanson, man? You holding or folding?
Yeah, so I'm pretty liberal with cutting guys in like a 10-team league if I really need production. If you're like 5th place and you need to get into 4th place and you just don't trust Swanson, you know, in a redraft, it's sort of the Wild West of fantasy, I've always called it, where, you know, you're only going to be rostering these guys for another month and a couple weeks. That being said, I really think Swanson's a strong player. He was top 20 last year, you know, in standard cat leagues, giving 5-cat production. Like Andrew said, he's right there with 20 home runs. He's probably going to end up with 75 plus RBIs and runs, especially out of the shortstop position. You know, there's not a lot of replacement value on the wire right there. I see, Jacob, you put Duvall is in there right now. And this is one of those dichotomies where it's like the guy that's hot, that's clearly less leverage on terms of draft day than Swanson, someone who, you know, had some helium going into this draft after last year. I think a lot of people saw some regression coming with Swanson, rightfully so. He could be pick, you know, 80 to 120 this year, where last year he was a top 20 player. You know, I think the smarter move is to hold Swanson in this situation. But if it's a utility bat or you need a 4th outfielder and you need some power, I would be fine cutting for Duvall in that case. But that goes with the caveat that I do think Swanson's a better player and I do trust Swanson more. But if you're going to start streaming his spot, you know, and you pick up Duvall and he gets, you know, some paltry statistics, you got to keep streaming until you find that guy. And it's late in the year to kind of get a streamer spot going to really get a solid asset. Now, if your league isn't that competitive with a bunch of wire sharks and you can pick up a lot of guys to stream in that spot to get a replacement value player, I could see that happening. So yeah, complex answer, but I think it's specific to on your style and how aggressive you want to be.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And like I said, I mean, I'm with you. In 10 and some 12 league formats, you know, if you have somebody like Adam Duvall, I'm still holding Swanson, but it also depends on the context of your team. Like, are you really, really deep at shortstop or middle infield? And, you know, are you hurting in the outfield aspects of it? And you need somebody like Duvall. Like, I can maybe understand that, but again, I know it's a very complex answers that we gave, but team context is important. Also style of form, you know, style of player you are, who you're playing against, schedules, the whole 9 yards. But I think it sounds like for everybody here, it looks like we're holding on to Dansby. All right. Thank you guys for joining. We have a lot of people in the live chat right now. Appreciate you guys being here. Make sure that you guys follow us on Twitter, aka X, and also make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, the Palazzo Podcast. We do weekly shows, at least 2, now 3, and we're going to be doing some fantasy football content as well. Make sure you guys are on that. And we also have a Discord as well. A lot of great minds in there. All the Palazzo Bozos are in there helping you guys out. A lot of great minds with baseball. And you can get your questions answered in there as well. Next question comes from R Sands 9. Dropping JD Martinez in a 15-team NFBC league where 7-man bench and no IL. I'll start with Andrew. What are you doing here?
I'm probably dropping here. It always depends who's on the wire, but I think JD really hit his stride at, I think it was like midpoint this season where he was just homering left and right. And after that injury, I don't think that he's going to find that same power when he comes back or whenever he comes back. I'm not sure what the estimated date is on that. With these type, it's always it depends for me usually, because I need to see what the waiver wire looks like, because if there's not a name justifiable dropping him for, I would most likely hold him and just hope for the upside to come back. But if there's anyone serviceable on the wire, yeah, I'm dropping him.
Yeah, and it's good to note that as well, is that there is no IL spot, so it makes things a little harder. That makes it a lot harder for holding on to JD Martinez, especially if you're approaching the playoffs. You need that roster spot, right? So totally agree with that take, Andrew. But Tyler, interested to hear yours as well.
It's a really good question because I have JD Martinez rostered in a couple spots, and it's been pondering on my mind, how long do I hold? I have one league with one IL, and I've held him on my bench because I have someone else on IL more important. And it's getting to the territory here where, the report on the 22nd said 2 to 3 more weeks on the IL. And it's important to note that he tried to play through his hamstring injury a couple times recently and got back on the shelf. And he's old. I think he's 35 plus. He had a great start to the year, but I think his perception is based on that rather than just the reality of him being an older player who did break down and his body's breaking down. I think if he was active, he's definitely someone that I would hold in a 15-teamer. It's just, at this point in the year, if he's going to come back September 14th or September 10th and be in and out of the lineup, he wouldn't have that much value. I'm really worried about him in the league that I have him. I just traded a couple closers to get Eddie Rosario in there to, fulfill, a back end bat. Andrew's in that league, so he gave a smirk on that. But yeah, I'm fine dropping him if there's replacement value. It's really hard just eating a roster spot in any league, because even if JD goes off, you're still losing that production from not having that roster spot now. So the net aspect of keeping him, even if he plays all right when he comes back from injury, which is a question mark, you're still eating value day to day right now. So in a redraft, or even in a dynasty, because he's pretty old, I'd be fine swapping if there's good replacement value on the wire.
Yeah, for me, it's an easy swap here, especially if you're coming up on playoff time. I agree with both the boys' takes here on dropping him. With no IL, it's a no-brainer for me. But at the same time, too, with the uncertainty of him when he does come back, how long they'll play him for, they maybe want him fresh for the playoffs. And again, really, in a 15-team league, you got a lot of guys who are probably already going to be scooped up. I'm sure you could probably find something on the waiver wire that can help you out as a bench bat, or maybe even a pitcher. So that you need. So it's across the board here. I'm fine with dropping him, but like Andrew had said, team context and the rest of your team is important here. So keep the questions coming, guys. Appreciate it. The next question comes from Michael Rosales. Thanks for doing this, fellas. Could only roster one, Cano or Alzolay, rest of the season? I'm a nose guy, so I'm a little biased here in this answer, but I'm going to go Cano here, being as that they're the second best team in baseball here. Felix Bautista looks like he's not going to be pitching the rest of the season here. It's going to be Yenny Cano. But I will note, too, and I tweeted this out yesterday, Cano is a very, very popular ad, and rightfully so. He's the most likely choice to replace those saves. But I also do think that Hyde is going to, depending on games and who they're playing, are going to be very matchup space. So if the O's got the middle, the heart of the order coming up in the 8th inning, I could see Cano jumping into the 8th and them using somebody else in the 9th. But Yenny Cano is not Felix Bautista. It's not a lateral move here. He doesn't have that overpowering fastball where he's touching 102, 103. So keep that in mind. He does got really, really good stuff. He's got a great changeup that moves and gets guys out on. He did pick up the save yesterday. For me, it's Cano here, but at the same time too, I would just also exercise caution that there could be a chance that, again, he uses Cano as a high leverage reliever, depending on where they are in the lineup moving forward. But Tyler, interested to hear your thoughts here.
Well, these two guys are two of the best stories out of the bullpen in 2023 fantasy baseball. Alzolay had that prospect pedigree as a starter, and did fair as a starter, but never really found his niche, and then got inserted into that closer role over Mark Leiter Jr. as the season went on. Yennier Cano had that scoreless streak to start the year, I think like 22 innings or something like that. So he's been on everyone's radar. So rightfully so, when Bautista went down, he's been one of the more hot ads. I can see him being used in a fireman role too. Interested to see what Brandon Hyde does there. If I had to choose between one of the two, I'd probably go Yennier Cano slightly. I am a little bit worried that he does get used as a high leverage reliever as opposed to a straight up fireman. But I do think because the Orioles are a very good ball club, that it still might cancel out in terms of number of save opportunities, or even more, even if he's used as a fireman due to team context. They're both great options. I would try to get both if I can and cut an excess bench bat, or just bang a middling starting pitcher or streamer starter spot. But I like Cano here just based on volume. Cano's ratios are good. Alzolay has a bit of a higher K rate and has racked up 4 to 5 saves in the last month. So it's a yin or yang. I think you can't go wrong with either one, but I would feel a little bit more excited with Cano just because of team context.
Agreed. Andrew, what are you doing here, Cano or Alzolay?
Personally, I'm going to take another angle here. I'm going to go Alzolay. It was actually funny you mentioned the Cano thing. I remember the first 3 weeks, his whip was actually just 0 for the first 3 to 4 weeks. That was nuts.
It's crazy.
Let me not get off track here, but yeah, I'm going Alzolay. My angle here is I think the Cubs, like you said, they're in a playoff push. They're going to be in a lot of close games going down the stretch. And he's really someone I liked from the beginning of the season. I was banging my drum to him over Leiter when that was a committee. And this month alone, he has 9 saves, Alzolay. They're in a lot of close games. And like you said, again, Cano could be used as high leverage guy. He could be using in the 8th when they face the middle of the order, something like that. I do like Cano's stuff though. His changeup is really nasty, but I think that the Cubs are going to be a lot of close games going down the stretch with the playoff push. I feel like they always work in that magic towards the end of the year when they're somewhat competitive. So I'll go Alzolay here since they usually use him as the fireman, the 9th inning guy. So that's what I'm going to go with here.
There you go. So you heard it here first, right? Tyler and I are on Cano. Andrew's on Alzolay. I think, and Andrew, I think you'll agree with this take as well. What Tyler said, it's kind of a yin and yang. You really can't go wrong with either one of these guys. It's just a matter of splitting hairs and who you prefer. But I'm with Tyler here. If you could find a way to get both these guys, I'd be doing it ASAP. So
yeah, absolutely with that. I agree.
Yeah. So next question here. Thank you guys for joining. We got a lot of people in the live chat. Really appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the Palazzo Podcast. Make sure you're following myself at MKB Fantasy, Andrew at Andrew_FBB, and then Tyler London at Back Big Fantasy. Keep the questions coming. This is what the point of this show is. We haven't even touched into our show sheet here yet, and we're almost 30 minutes into the show, but that's what we're here to do is help you guys. James asks, Grayson Rodriguez or Christopher Sanchez rest of season, roto, and playoffs? Thanks. Like I said earlier, we got another O question here, but I'll let you guys start. Tyler, we'll start with you. Who you taking here?
Give me G-Rod all day here. I know Christopher Sanchez, I think, has 3 quality starts in a row. But Grayson is up there with Yuri Perez and Gavin Williams for me as my favorite 3 rookie pitchers. And he's been great. 2.61 ERA, 1 whip over his last 31 innings with a win. His K rate hasn't been great, 25 Ks in his last 31 innings, but he's on a good team. I think, the Orioles are going to get more wins than the Phillies rest of the way. So give me G-Rod here, slam dunk.
Excellent. Yeah. Andrew, what about you, man? What are you going with?
Yeah, I'm going G-Rod all day with me as well. He was my number 1 pitching prospect coming into the season. Struggled a little bit out of the gate. But after being sent down to AAA, he really turned it up and had a few scoreless starts, I believe. I like his ratios. I like what he brings to the table with fire fastball. I like the O's team context as well with the wins they'll produce. So I'm going to go G-Rod there. Easy for me.
Yeah, same thing here. Slam dunk G-Rod across the board here. Like the guys had already mentioned, again, team context. He's really going to anchor that rotation, in my opinion. Again, he just needs to be a little bit better about locating his fastball. excuse me, and making sure that he keeps guys off base with the walks. But he was the number one pitching prospect in baseball last year, and even probably coming into this year for a reason. He's that good. Again, I don't think we've even sniffed his ceiling yet. So again, as he continues to get better and more comfortable with starts, Grayson Rodriguez's stuff is just above and beyond Christopher Sanchez's. So it's a slam dunk here for me, Grayson Rodriguez. Fogues says 2 weeks left. I've lost 7 championships in a row. Oof, that hurts. 6x6 categories with OPS and quality start. I need 1 or 2 solid starting pitchers. I got 1 bench hitter, 3 RPs, 8 SPs. Do you drop one of the 3 RPs in Estevez, Sewald, or Chapman? Not really sure what the question is here. It sounds like you need a solid starting pitcher and you're looking to drop one of your relief pitchers for him. I'm not dropping Estevez, Sewald. I guess if you're playing a saves league, I'd be fine maybe dropping Chapman, but it really depends on who's on your waiver wire in terms of your starting pitching. So that would help, folks, if you have that. Drop that in the live chat. But guys, I'm interested to hear your takes on these as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a head-to-head or a roto format. If it's a head-to-head format, I think you really got to look at who your playoff matchups are, see how many starting pitchers they have compared to relievers. Like if they have no closers, you can be fine with probably Estevez and Sewald or Chapman. Chapman's interesting because we don't really know who the closer is in Texas right now. I think Chapman got the last opportunity, but Bochy has shown a firm commitment to Will Smith, and they're trying to work out his fastball right now. So I'm interested to see where that goes. But it's enough confusion where you can maybe drop a Chapman, but his Ks are great too to slot on your roster. So I think it comes down to team context. I see 8 starting pitchers. So if you're dropping a reliever and getting up to 9, and that's going to really give you volume over your opponent to get you wins and Ks. And hopefully the ratios play. I could see doing that. So out of the 3, I think as of today, it'd be Chapman, although I think Chapman's a much better pitcher than Estevez. Estevez has been very sketchy at times this year, but he's like firmly entrenched in the role, and he's had a good last week. So, yeah, that's my take.
Cool. Andrew, who are you going with here, man? I know it's a kind of a confusing question, but I assume your answer would be Chapman as well, no?
Yeah, I see at the bottom he followed up who to drop, and he said Fat or Taillon to pick up. Yeah, I would drop Chapman for Fat probably in that scenario. Yeah, the closing role in Texas is kind of a mess right now. I see MKB all over Twitter saying Chapman. I agreed all the way, and then he got his shot and he kind of blew it up a little bit. But yeah, Smith's been a mess too. I really do like Chapman though, but in that scenario, I'm probably picking up Fat for him because if it's saves only head to head, it's tough to justify holding him if there's a serviceable starting pitcher on the waiver wire.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting too, right? Like Tyler had mentioned, it depends on what the scoring is. Did he put that down below? Head to head, is it a Cats league?
Yeah, he said 6x6.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so I mean, it really depends too. I mean, I'd like to see how things shake out. It's worth noting that Chapman did get the 9th yesterday. I also want to go on record of saying here real quick, just to add a little bit more sugar to this medicine with Will Smith. For those of you guys who are Will Smith truthers, the month of August, Will Smith has gone 8 1/3 with 11 hits, 10 earned runs, 3 walks, 6 Ks to go along with 5 saves. So that's good at the beginning of the month. 2 losses and 2 blown saves. Aroldis Chapman this month is 11 innings pitched, 7 hits, 1 earned run, 4 walks, 20 strikeouts to go along with 5 holds, 0 losses, and 1 blown save. So, and I don't think anybody's going to disagree with this. I think he has the better closer stuff. He's a little bit, with the fastball. He's got like the yips when it comes to the 9th inning, though. So it's still kind of, remains to be seen. When he does get the job, it's for him. It's like I said, I think it's mental. He just leaves balls over the plate. Guys are taking him out, and he's not able to locate. So, but again, I love Aroldis Chapman moving forward. I do think he's the guy to own in Texas. I think Will Smith. We've seen this from Will Smith before too. He just might be getting a little bit dead arm here. But like Tyler had mentioned, Bochy loves him, so I could see them kind of splitting more going down to the wire here. All right, keep the questions coming here, guys. Appreciate it. Where are we at in here? My brother Joe, how do we replace Felix? Is Cano the ad? Do we go get DL Hall? Also, will Discord have football content in there as well? Oh man. So this is, for those of you guys who don't know, this is my brother, Joe. Joe, we talked about it earlier with replacing Felix Hernandez. Cano is the ad here. We were talking about it, that he could get maybe the eighth inning if they're in the middle of the order there. So it's really going to be dependent on what Hyde does here. Maybe he plays the matchups. I think he knows that Cano is their best reliever. He wants to utilize him in the spots where he's going to be most successful at, especially at given the time of the game too. So there's a lot of context in terms of how the game's going that's going to be in play here. But yeah, Cano's the ad. DL Hall for me is just going to be a guy that's in dynasty formats that he should be owned. But he's a guy that, again, just probably going to be in the 7th to 8th inning role. Brandon Hyde said yesterday in the post-game presser, he just wants him to fill up the strike zone and just get guys out. So yes, the Discord will have football content in there as well. There's a whole nother segment for that. So make sure you guys check out that as well. If you're not in the Palazzo Podcast Discord, Michael Govier and I are going to be doing football content next week. He's on vacation, but keep in mind of that. Adam Lee has another question here too. We dump in Paxton ahead of the KC start. Arm fatigue for Grayson, Fairbanks, or I assume you mean Tyler Holton. 5x5 roto, second place right now, and need pitching points, any category. For me, yeah, James Paxton for me hasn't looked good. He does get Kansas City next. I don't know if it's arm fatigue or not. He just hasn't been locating well. If you've watched any of his starts, and he really doesn't have any overpowering stuff. I think you'll see Boston start to taper off here a little bit. I know they were making a push, but I just don't think they have the starting pitching to compete. But I think Grayson Rodriguez is the clear own here. Well, actually, it really depends. If you need saves, I can see go and get Fairbanks. But if you need a starting pitcher, Grayson's the ad for me. But Tyler, I'll shoot it over to you. Who do you got here?
Yeah, Paxton had some knee soreness, I think, 2 months ago, and he hasn't really been the same since. I'm not sure if that's correlating with it, but nonetheless, the results haven't been there lately. He started off the year when he got in that rotation with, a lot of quality starts, 8 strikeout games. But I think it's sort of a sunk cost situation here right now where he just hasn't been great recently. I do think he can bounce back, and I think he's a streamable starter against some teams like Kansas City. But if you have a guy like Grayson on the wire and want a starter, I definitely get him. If you need a closer, Fairbanks for Paxton, I think is a slam dunk. Holton is great. Like, I'm adding Holton in a lot of spots, but the thing with those sort of non-closers are you can't really bank on those wins necessarily that they're getting. It's really a crapshoot. So Holton's really got a lot of helium because he's getting some bulk appearances, and I do think he can rack up a couple more wins. But I'm always cautious of, adding those type of relievers over, replacement value closers that have like a pure saves roller, a guy like Grayson, who's, a really good starting pitching stud, although I really like Holton and I'm adding him in a lot of places. But yeah, fine dropping Paxton for sure for Grayson or Fairbanks, depending on if you want a starter or closer.
Yeah, totally agree. Andrew, I assume you're on board with that.
Yeah, I mean, Paxton's been hurt a lot over the past, 3 years he's been hurt. I don't think his arm's really built up for this yet. I think he's still working back up, or just
great call,
cliffing off as a total. I agree with Tyler, though. It's really hard for me personally to justify adding those non-closer relievers. It's really, really rare that I do that. The only person I remember doing that recently with was Cano at the beginning of the season. Like, with that 0 whip, it was a must add for me. I had to get those ratios. So I'd probably drop Paxton for Grayson. Paxton just looks for ROS. It looks like he's going to be that guy. He'll give you good starts against bad teams. He's one of those guys. But The 2 starts, he got blown up a little bit. Last start and the start before, Houston and LA, 2 good teams. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world that he got blown up by them. But, yeah, I'm just going to go Grayson here for the upside and the stuff he has. It just I like the reliability a little bit more.
Yeah, great take on him not being built up yet. For those of you guys who don't know, for James Paxton, he's been a journeyman. He's been with a lot of teams, the Yankees, the Mariners, now the Red Sox. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries over the years. So again, I'm with Andrew on that 100% in terms of him just not being able to sustain a full season. I think he's just pooping out here. So might be running on E a little bit. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they shorten his starts here moving forward. But yeah, like we had all alluded to, it depends on what you need. If you need starting pitching, go get Grayson. And if you need a closer, go get Fairbanks. Thank you for the question, Adam. Appreciate it. My brother also says Cano might even lose that job too. Yeah, I mean, he was great at the beginning, and then he started to falter a lot in the towards that right around the All-Star break, he was getting killed. But again, they don't really have anybody else. We were talking about it on the way home from the game last night. They have to go with him. He's their best reliever in the pen right now. I don't think he loses his job though. He's probably going to have a pretty strong leash just by default. So, All right. Michael says, appreciate it, guys. No problem, man. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. James says, great advice and great show today. You guys are on fire with the questions. Thank you, James. Appreciate it, brother. Cano or Fairbanks rest of season, saves and holds league. Give me Cano, but again, pretty close here. I like Fairbanks a lot. I think he's got nasty stuff. Actually, I don't know. It is really close here, I will say. Yeah, I'm going to be a homer here and go Cano, but what do you guys think?
I'll go Cano here. I know Fairbanks has some upside. He does have really nasty stuff. But he had a weird thing going on with his forearm, I remember at the beginning of the season, and that just freaked me out. He had the similar thing to what I believe Springs has or Rasmussen has in his forearm. It was just a weird start. I don't like that. That just gives me I don't know. I just like to stay away from stuff like that. So I'll take Cano for durability and Ozer, a better team in my opinion.
Cool. Tyler, what says you, buddy?
Yeah, I remember Fairbanks had, I think Raynaud syndrome, where in cold weather, sort of lose some sensation in the fingers, where I guess in September that could play in some cold atmospheres. So hasn't reared up in a while. But Fairbanks, is injury prone. I'm going to go Fairbanks here. I really like the K rate upside here. He has 43 Ks in 32 innings, and that's, a deciding factor for me also with just not having a little bit more clarity on Cano right now. But I think they're both like elite closers. Like I both have them firmly in the top 15 relievers right now. Can't go wrong either way. Fairbanks hasn't had as much volume over the last 2 weeks, just 2 saves, 5 innings, but the Rays are going to be in some close games. So it's a close one for me, but I like Fairbanks. I'm also a Fairbanks truther. Last year you had that 1.13 ERA, 0.67 whip in limited innings. And I really like the upside there and trust the Rays, if they're giving him the 9th over Jason Adam. I really think he's a good pitcher, but yeah, can't go wrong. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. And damn you for going against my Orioles, man. I wanted to be 3 for 3 here with Cano. I'm kidding. Yeah, it's really close for me too. It's really splitting hairs. It's a good problem to have. If you could get both of these guys, both Cano and Fairbanks, I'd be finding a way to do that. But yeah. So just for record here, Charles, Cano for me, and Andrew, and then Tyler is taking Fairbanks. Right. Next question we have here. Actually, you know what? We are already 42 minutes into the show. We will get to your questions, guys. I do want to dive into some of the show sheet here. And make sure that we go through this real quick. So we do a segment here too. If you guys have watched the show on the Palazzo podcast, 2 L's, 2 Z's, we're going to do a Gimme 2 segment here in terms of guys to add for next week. And I want to go over these guys really quickly so we can get back to the questions. But Andrew, I'll start with you. We all took some time to kind of think about a hitter and a pitcher that who we like for next week, or as a speculative ad here coming up, and that might be available in your league. These guys are less than 60% rostered. So some of these guys might be available. It can help your teams down the stretch. Obviously, team context is important when we talk about adding these guys. If you're playing redraft, if you're playing dynasty formats, if you're playing in head-to-head, points, roto, whatever we're talking about, all those things are in consideration here. But these are some of the guys we like coming up. So, Andrew, I'm going to start with you, man, being the new guy on the show here. Who is a pitcher you like for next week?
This one for me is Cole Ragans. This is just criminal that he's not as owned as he currently is. If you follow me on Twitter, I've just been preaching about him the last 2 or 3 weeks since he got dealt to Kansas City. Since he went there and got acquired, he has a 2 ERA. The ability for him to miss bats has really just been the main thing that I'm just gravitating towards, and it's just been jaw-dropping for me. 12.2 K per 9, 15% swinging strike percentage with Kansas City. That would be in top 10 of all of the MLB in terms of pitchers. So that's just a ridiculous number for him to hold. And it's just, he should be way more owned than he currently is. And it irritates me a little bit as a fantasy baseball connoisseur. So that's my ad this week. Everyone, please go grab Cole Ragans.
Let me ask you this too. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people are not adding him right now? Because we have probably a good sample, not probably, we do. We have a good sample size of his last couple of starts here where he can be a guy that people should be adding with the current state of starting pitching right now and it being all over the place. Ragans has been rock solid. But why do you think that is, Andrew?
I think it's the surface level numbers for him. I think he's close to a 6 ERA, a 5 ERA, around that range. So people probably see that and get a little frightened and maybe just think this is a hot stretch or whatever. But I think maybe Kansas City being his team as well. I don't know. Maybe people don't trust that. There's a lot of reasons to add him and very, very little reasons to not take a flyer on a guy like this, just pitching incredibly well. So I think it's the surface level numbers definitely scaring people off a bit.
Yeah, and I think you hit it right on the head between those numbers that he has currently. If you looked at his stats, and then also the fact that he plays for Kansas City, people probably don't know much about him. You got to believe that I think Texas is probably kicking themselves in the ass after watching these past couple of starts here. So,
and Texas has young too.
Yeah, and Texas has been losing some games, so they could definitely use him. So, but yeah, great take. I love that. That ad for next week. He should have already been rostered, in my opinion. Like, we shouldn't even really be talking about it because he should be rostered in a lot more spots, especially, like I said, with the current state of starting pitching. So I love that call. Tyler, we'll take it over to you, man. Who's your pitcher for next week that you want to add?
I'm going to kind of cheat and do two. I like Seth Lugo. He's had 2 good starts in a row. He's on the Padres, and I really have always been excited for him based off of his per inning numbers on the Mets out of the bullpen. So he's someone, I think he's lined up for a 2-start week with some good matchups coming up too. So he's someone that I'm looking at. And then also for more competitive leagues, Jordan Wicks, who came up, struck out 9 in 5 innings. Great changeup. A little bit worried about his control, but in a super competitive league where there's just not a lot of starting pitchers on the wire, he's someone that's come up that I'm excited about.
Two things, and I love both of those guys. I'm so glad you added both of those guys. You are correct. Seth Lugo does get a 2-start week. He gets his first at St. Louis and then versus San Francisco. So pretty good matchups for him. And again, like Andrew had alluded to with Ragans, I think Lugo should be rostered in a lot more formats as well. But in terms of Jordan Wicks, I do want to get your take on this one, Tyler. And I've seen this question a lot on Twitter. I've actually gotten a lot of these myself within the Discord, then also in my DMs as well. Does Jordan Wicks stick in the rotation after this start? He's got to, right?
I think so. Let me see who they have next on here. It looks like it's at Cincinnati, so it's a tough matchup. So that'll be a Great American Ballpark one. So that's why I'm a little bit worried about him. But I do think, based off the Cubs wanting to win games, I would assume he sticks in there, but until it's locked in there, he's not yet up on the schedule on major sites, locked into that start yet. So it's something to keep an eye on. Yeah.
Can I don't know add something for that one?
Yeah, please.
For Wicks, in my opinion, the new thing for the pitchers, the young guys, when they promote them, is we'll play it by ear. Give us a reason to send you down is basically the mentality I've been seeing a lot. So if he keeps pitching well, pitches well, he'll most likely stay up in the near future. But if he gets blown up in Cincinnati, I think he'll probably most likely get sent down for a little bit. But that's just my flow I've noticed lately with the young guys.
Yeah, and great take. I was just getting ready to say it. He struck out 9 guys on 80 pitches. And so, I mean, I don't know if they're going to be doing the whole monitoring his innings aspect of it. Maybe they were just trying to get him in a good spot and to say, hey, like, this is his first start. Get him in there, get him some reps, and hopefully he'll go deeper into the games. But if he's only throwing 80 pitches, it's going to be tough for him to pull out wins, especially if he's, if he's walking guys like Tyler alluded to. If his control's off that game, or if he's getting shelled, it's gonna be hard for him to go more than 5 innings and qualify for the win. So, in my opinion, with Wicks, he's intriguing for me. As most of you guys know, or if you don't know, they lost Marcus Stroman. They need a spark in that rotation. Justin Steele's been anchoring that down. Which, by the way, Justin Steele has been rock solid. I don't think he was getting drafted on real deep in people's teams here, but I've always said on Twitter, he's this year's Kyle Wright for me. Guy's just been incredible, but they need another quality starter, especially for them making a playoff push here. I would not be surprised if they left him up here. They have to, and like you said, Andrew, he didn't give him a reason to send him down. So I know it was the Pirates, but you got to roll him back out there against Cincinnati. I'd be shocked if they sent him back down to the minors, but we'll see. So, Tyler, love the call on both those guys. Guy I'm adding for the next week, and this is more for your holds formats, is Tyler Holton. We talked about him already a little bit in the show. The guy's been incredible. Again, if you play in a holds league, he's must roster for me. Tyler, I know you've been talking a lot about him on Twitter. Any thoughts to add on Tyler Holton here? I'm bringing up. I just wanted to bring up his game log here real quick.
Yeah, I saw a couple tweets. Like, he has the lowest ERA in the Major League Baseball with over 60 innings pitched, and he had a 2.1 inning, 5 strikeout game recently. Also added a couple wins out of the pen. And, Lang hasn't been great. Foley isn't elite. So, I don't think Holton will really be in the saves mix, but they might throw him in there in some opportunities late in the year, and he's going to get some Rookie of the Year votes, maybe from a few voters, and his StatCast is great. So he, I think, is top 60 in standard cat leagues. So even if you're in a saves only league and you see your ratios are getting blown up every week, he's someone that could presumably get 4 or 5 innings in a week shut out. So I think he has value even beyond the holds leagues. But always with these guys, I think it's a luxury to get these type of players in, because you're not going to get saves if it's a saves only league. Now, if you're in a roto format, I think it's even more attractive if you're really in a battle on whipping ERA or have an innings limit to add a guy like Holton. But he's like probably right now my favorite non-closer reliever in the game. Payamps early on kind of held that trophy for me, and then now I'm sort of really looking into Tyler Holton.
Yeah, that's a great call, and I was just getting ready to mention that too. He does have value in non-holds leagues as well. If you notice that your ratios are getting blown up by starters or you're even relievers, if you can throw them into that pitcher spot. If you play in like Yahoo formats where you can kind of throw an SP or an RP in there. It's worth noting over the last month, he is 3-1 with a save, 15 strikeouts, and a 1.32 ERA with a 9.88 K per 9. So he's got value. So again, if there's somebody that you're looking to kind of steady your ratios here and kind of hold that down, I like Tyler Holton. Again, he's only 8% rostered in Yahoo leagues. That number has grown 5% over the last week. So again, go grab Tyler Holton. If you lost a guy like maybe Felix Bautista and you play in a really, really competitive saves league and all the closers are taken, might be a guy that you can kind of throw in there to kind of improve your ratios there a little bit. But Andrew, any thoughts on Tyler Holton?
Yeah, like you guys basically highlighted, the ratios are going to be good. The ERA is low, but I don't know if it's hard for me, like I said, to add the guys who don't really have save opportunities down the stretch. So I do really
even in
like
some of your deeper formats.
If you need ERA, and then if it's a deeper one, yeah, I'd add him if there's no closers, because usually in the shallower ones, there's still some low leverage closers still on the wire. But like you said, if it's a deep league, I'm adding him 100%.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, like I said, and this is more for your deeper formats, your holds leagues, even in your non-holds league. These are more of your 12, 15 team leagues, probably more sorts on those 15 team formats. If you play in an NFBC league or something along those lines. Again, if you lost, closers for me are a lot like running backs in football. They all get scooped up pretty quick. Even the guys who play on shitty teams. So Tyler Holton's a guy that can help you out in terms of your ratios and your Ks. But let's move on to the hitters here next. I'm going to start with the hitters. For me, I'm going to go Josh Rojas of the Seattle Mariners. Again, if you followed me for a while or if you've watched this show, you know that I am a guy on riding the wave, especially at this point in the season. If you got guys that are kind of like waiver wire guys that started hot and are starting to taper off, a guy like Josh Rojas can kind of fill that void. You can cut these guys that you're riding the wave with, add him. He does get his next 3 games. He got Kansas City today, but his next 3 games come against Oakland at home. But the dude's been on fire since he's really been traded to Seattle. Over the last 2 weeks, he's hitting .381 with 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, and 13 runs scored. He's usually been hitting towards the bottom part of the lineup there, so not a great spot in terms of fantasy production or sustaining fantasy production. But I do think he can help you out, especially if you need second base or third base help. Again, riding the week, at least for the first half of the week there with Josh Rojas. Guys, any interest in any of those in Josh Rojas, or you add him in some of your deeper formats?
Yeah, I'll go first. I agree with you 100%. Riding the hot hand is basically how you win fantasy baseball. If you pick up all the guys when they're hot and they give you good numbers, and you let them go when they're not hot anymore, your overall numbers for the year are just going to be great. So Rojas really looks like he found a better situation for him. The pop is something I really liked as of late. So yeah, I'm definitely adding him in most formats.
Excellent. Yeah, Tyler, what about you, man?
Yeah, I like his dual player or dual position eligibility, second, third base. Great guy to slot in as a utility player or as a bench bat. Yeah, definitely ride the wave. I think mentality. If anyone's out there and haven't really leaned into having a streamer hitter spot and a streamer pitcher spot where you can pretty much just cycle who's hot. Because in baseball, if you've ever played or you've been watching a while, it's such a mental game. And even these major league hitters, when they, get their mechanics down and get hot, they usually can stay hot. So you got to ride those hot hands. Rojas, when he got called up to the D-backs, his former team, was considered a top prospect, and everyone was excited for his 2020 upside. And he's shown that in stretches. And on the Diamondbacks, it was sort of a crowded team. And now seems like he's found new life in Seattle. And Seattle's a fun team too. Great announcer too to watch. So, add Rojas, throw on MLB TV, and let's see him ride this wave.
There you go. Love the call. Love the take. Josh Rojas, for me, again, is a guy that can help you out, especially in the first half of next week. They get the Athletics at home. So, again, really, really good matchups for him moving forward. And, again, I'm riding the wave until it crashes. So, Andrew, I'll take it to you, man. Who's a hitter that you're looking to add next week?
This is someone who's probably available in the league you're in. Hunter Goodman, just promoted from Colorado. I think he's the 13th ranked prospect for them. 23 years old, does not really get a ton of hype in the minors, which he definitely should have. One of the better power bats in AAA since he got promoted.
Hell yeah.
Through those 15 games when he's in AAA, when he got promoted, he's batting .371, 9 home runs, 33 RBIs. Plate disciplines, not anything terrible. 25% K rate, could be a little bit better, but not horrible. 532 ISO is just mind-boggling. Obviously, not sustainable numbers, but that shows the type of raw power he really holds. And mix that along with Coors, I'm absolutely adding him. His defensive prowess is a little bit shaky. It remains seen where he's going to play consistently. I know he's playing first today when I just checked the lineup. But the power mixed with Colorado is just, I'm going to put my chips all in right here. And this, if he stays up, this could be a league-winning type of ad with the type of power that he holds.
Ooh, you heard it here. Heard it here first, folks. Andrew is locking it in. I love that call, man. I 100% agree with you. I think he's not getting enough hype here. My concerns with him, though, and I'm interested to hear your take with him, is obviously, like I said, I think they're going to find spots for him in the lineup if he continues to hit for this type of power, right? Like, he's playing first today, he can catch, and then there's the DH spot. So I definitely think there's creative ways, kind of like a Yainer Diaz for the Astros, kind of trying to find creative ways to get him in the lineup between those three spots, between DH, catcher, and first base. But and I know the Rockies do what the Rockies do, right? They know they have top talent. This guy's coming up, and then they sit him, right? So do you think that moving forward, especially as we head into September here, noting that they have 16 home games, do you think that they'll continue to find consistent playing time for him moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I know me and Tyler have talked about that a ton. We play baseball our entire lives. I know you said you played baseball as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you can hit, they will find a spot for you. That is the hardest thing to come by, is elite hitting talent in baseball. There's fielders that's valuable, of course. But if you can hit, they will find a spot for you. I know that was a concern with CES when he was coming up with the Reds. A lot of people were like, he's nowhere for him to play. No, they're going to find a spot for you if you can hit. Absolutely. So with that power mix, I think they will. And even on something that Tyler said before about a hitter finds their groove and they can run off to the races right there. Absolutely. Someone said that about Teoscar Hernandez. I remember on Twitter today, they were like, no, he's been horrible this year, but he hit 2 home runs last night. Don't worry about it. He's going to be horrible. No, these guys are professional hitters. If they find their groove, they can easily get hot, especially the proven ones. So I just wanted to add that in there too. But I think if you can hit, they will find a spot for you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you agree with the take too, in terms of finding a spot for him in the lineup, in terms of where he actually slots in at, right? DH, catcher, first base, maybe he rotates between those 3 spots.
Yeah, he was limited, I think, to a lot of DH in AAA. Okay. I think they're really veering away from him as a catcher. There's some potential there, but if it's hard to really play a minus defender at the catcher position. The last one I remember that was a good hitter was probably Gary Sanchez on the Yankees, but we all know how that turned out. So I think they'll put him probably relegated to first, maybe a corner outfield spot, maybe mostly DH, but the universal DH definitely helps in slotting him in there.
Yeah, and especially for some of your catchers, we talked about this pre-show as well, and I don't want to spend too much more time on him here because I do want to get to Tyler's hitter. If you own a guy like Sean Murphy, I hate rostering 2 catchers in 1 catcher formats, but again, I'm not sitting here saying drop Sean Murphy for him, but at the same time too, he's a guy to keep an eye on too, because if he's going to be consistently in the lineup, that's an advantage that you have over a lot of your league mates. For the catcher spot, because most catchers are going to be taking days off every other day, every 2 games, whatever it may be. But if they're finding spots for him to be in the lineup between those 3 positions, I love the call there, man. I think, and not to mention the home games, where he plays his home games at in Coors, he makes for an interesting ad this week, and hopefully that he can continue to translate that power over from AAA over to the majors. So love the call, Tyler. Who's the guy that you're adding here for next week?
Someone in 5 outfielder leagues or deeper formats, and someone that is firmly on my watch list in like 10, 12 team leagues is Parker Meadows of the Tigers. If you've been following since his call up, he's 6 for 17 with a home run. He had a 3-run bomb walk-off, I think, on Friday night, and he added a steal yesterday. And the appeal with him has been the speed and power blend. He had 19 home runs and 19 steals and 449 at-bats in the minors this year. And just like Zach Galoff, who showed like that 2020 statistical prowess in the minor leagues, anytime someone comes up that's put like 15 home runs, 15 steals, or higher, even pushing in that 2020 range, which Meadows would have easily hit if he got more at bats in the minors, it intrigues me because that 5-cap production is there. It seems like he strikes out a decent amount, I think about 25% of the time in the minors, and I think he struck out already 8 times in his 17 at bats in the majors. So if you're in one of those like point leagues where you get subtractions for strikeouts, maybe something to worry about. But he also has 4 walks, and I think he was their 10th ranked prospect. So he's going to get some burn for the Tigers down the stretch. So yeah, he's someone with another hot week is going to really get added a lot, I think, even in some standard leagues. So it might be time to get in. But yeah, small sample size too. So he's someone I'm excited about. But anyone that comes up has a steal and a home run in their first 20 at bats after, putting up 19 home runs, 19 steals in the minors is someone that I'm really interested in. So yeah, really excited to see how Parker Meadows ends the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Love the call there. And if I'm not mistaken too, he's Austin Meadows' little brother, right?
I'm not sure. That would make sense.
I'm pretty positive that that's the case, but I'm not sure. Andrew, do you know?
I'm not sure. Actually, I think I did see that somewhere though.
Yeah, if anybody knows in the live chat, feel free to let us know. I believe that's the case. I didn't know when he got traded from Tampa to Detroit. I think that somebody had brought that up, but
yes, that is his brother. I just saw
okay
there real quick.
Cool. Yeah. So that's cool. So like I said, maybe he's got baseball blood, right? So Austin Meadows was pretty intriguing for a little bit. I know he's kind of tapered off here a little bit in his time with Detroit and obviously with Tampa Bay too, but love the call. I want to go on record real quick just to get your all's takes on the guys that you're mentioning in terms of hitters. Andrew, what league size are you adding your boy in Hunter Goodman?
Yeah. I want to have a hot take right here. I want to say any league, any format, I'm adding him. I think he's really going to hit the ground running in Colorado.
All right, man. I love it. So you heard it here, guys. All formats, all league size. He's pushing his chips in. He is a must add. That's what Andrew is saying here. Go get him if you need a power bat. Tyler, where are you at in Parker Meadows?
Any 5 outfielder league. I think he's someone I'm adding, or a 14 plus. I'm not quite there yet in a 10 to 12 team standard league yet though.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. I'm with you on that one. For me, for Josh Rojas, again, this is really a kind of a cheating answer here, but it really depends on the rest of your team and your team context in terms of if you need a second baseman or a third baseman, because he's got dual eligibility there. But I like adding him in 12 teams or deeper, especially if you're looking just to ride the wave there. Josh Rojas for me. I want to recap the guys that we're looking to add. So for the hitters section, I'm recommending Josh Rojas. Andrew's recommending Hunter Goodman. Tyler's recommending Parker Meadows. Pitcher wise, I'm going Tyler Holton. Tyler's going with Jordan Wicks, and Andrew's going with Cole Reagan. So those are some guys that should be available in your leagues. If you need a bench bat, you need a bench arm, you need guys to fill a void, go get those guys. I do want to get into the rest of the show sheet here really quickly. We're running close on time. I love all the questions. Keep them coming. We'll get those answered. The schedule this week, there's a couple teams that have 7 games. Those are the Braves, the Cubs, the Reds, the Tigers, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Padres, and the Nationals. And there's only one team with 5 games next week, and that's the Tampa Bay Rays. Everybody else has 6. So make sure you guys take a peek at that and make sure that you guys are looking at the rest of your schedule for your hitters throughout the week here, making sure that you guys have some spots in there to fill when those guys aren't playing. Easiest hitter matchups on docket here are the Blue Jays, the Pirates, the Mariners, the Angels, and the Tigers. The hardest hitter matchups for next week are the Guardians, the Nationals, the Rockies, the Diamondbacks, and the Oakland Athletics. But I would probably is really only really good one hitter on Oakland right now, and that's Zach Geloff. But all right, let's get into some more questions here real quick. D-Lou says, more of a dynasty, but is the real Oscar Gonzalez... Oh, is this the real Oscar Gonzalez? Was last season a mirage? It's kind of tough to say. I mean, we just haven't really seen much of him. I'm probably out on him in dynasty formats, but I'm interested to hear your guys' takes on
him. Yeah, I could take this one for next. Yeah, over on my Twitter, I'm really incorporating a lot of dynasty stuff, so you can check it out over there as well. Yeah, I think this is the real Oscar Gonzalez. Unfortunately, he's one of those high exit velo merchants where he really can't translate it. He smokes the ball, absolutely hits it hard every single time. It feels like, at least, but you have to incorporate that with another metric, is launch angle. Launch angle is not high enough for him to elevate the ball. He's not going to translate to home runs. So Vladdy's having that problem as well. But unless he lifts the ball, the exit velo is not really going to help him. So for the time being, I think he's just going to be a low average, sprinkling some home runs kind of guy.
Yeah. Tyler, any thoughts on there?
Yeah, it's interesting. He's hitting 4th and 3rd recently, but I'm out on Oscar Gonzalez too. He was a very common fade by a lot of draft analysts heading into this year due to a lot of the things Andrew brought up, his launch angle. And yeah, he's someone that I can't trust is going to be in the lineup every single day, even though I think he started 3 or 4 in a row. But yeah, and he's just a replacement value guy. So like, even if he does well, his 4 categories aren't anything especially unique, and you can kind of burn and turn to find someone, streamable better than an Oscar Gonzalez. I mean, if he turns it up the rest of the year, he'll be someone on my watch list to start the next year. But yeah, he's not a guy that I'm trying to add anywhere. And if I was in dynasty, he'd be someone that I'm not really too stoked on either.
Yeah, agreed. So across the board there, D-Lou, we're all out on Oscar Gonzalez. I think he can find a replacement bat for him. We'll take a couple more questions here. I know we're running a little over on time. I want to be cognizant and give Tyler and Andrew the rest of their Sundays here. But if you have questions, drop them in the live chat here. We'll go around the horn really quick here on this one. For the most part, with top 20 starting pitchers like Luis Castillo, do you start them and not be concerned with the team they're throwing against? Thanks. Yeah, BZA, RZA, GZA says start your aces, James. Yeah, I mean, Luis Castillo is probably on the latter end of that, probably in the middle of the pack there in terms of those top 20. But yeah, for me, you got to start him. I'm not saying he's matchup proof. He's going to go out there and throw 12 Ks with no earned runs, but it really depends on also too what kind of category you're playing in. Like if you're up on wins, you're up on Ks, your ERA is solid, and Luis Castillo is going up against a team maybe like the Dodgers or the Astros, I could see maybe sitting in to kind of preserve those categories. But at the same time, too, I'm probably throwing him in there. But interested to hear you guys' takes. For me, you got to start your top 20 guys. Like Andrew had alluded to earlier, these are the guys that you drafted. Luis Castillo is probably a top 4 or 5 round pick that you drafted him as. You got to roll him out there. But Andrew, I'll start with you. Are you rolling guys out like Luis Castillo? Is he matchup proof?
Yeah, no, it's usually for me, it's live and die by these guys. Unless I'm going into you're in a weekly and it's Saturday, Sunday, and you're up in ERA by maybe 2-3 whole points, then I'm probably just sitting just in case. But personally, the way I look at it is I'd rather start a guy and him get blown up opposed to sitting him and then he throws a gem. So that's the way I look at it usually. I very rarely do I sit a pitcher based off matchups because, it's baseball. Anything could happen any given day. Team could be hot. They can come out, they can put up 0 runs and 2 hits in the whole outing. So I'm usually starting most guys if I'm confident enough and I use draft capital on them.
Yeah. Great take. And I figured that'd be your answer there, Andrew. Tyler, are you making 3 for 3 here? Or are we rolling with guys like Luis Castillo?
Yeah. Start your studs. That's always my mentality in fantasy. You're not going to roster a Manny Machado to bench him. You're not going to roster a Luis Castillo to bench him. And
Bingo.
Really, honestly, in fantasy, if I'm rostering a pitcher, I'm going to use him. I'm going to really not try to roster guys that are matchup dependent And I'm not huge on streaming pitchers either. It's so volatile. So when you have those elite pitchers, top 30, top 40 pitchers, you got to start them. And these guys are good arms. They can go into Cincinnati and shove. They can go into Dodger Stadium and shove. And, unless, like Andrew said and what Mike said, if it's Sunday, Saturday, and you're, in a category head to head and you're up on Ks, up on wins, and, have a slight lead in ERA and WHIP, maybe sit, but, it could even help you too in that scenario if the other guys, pitchers go off and shove. So you kind of need that coverage. So yeah, start your studs.
Yeah, like I always say, don't get cute. These guys you're drafting, these are your studs. You want to throw them out there. You can obviously be strategic and depending on what format you play in. So it's a slam dunk across the board there. Charles you guys mentioned hot hitters. I have held Yoshida all year in my points league. He has 32 points the last 30 days. When to pull the plug for a hotter hitter, McNeil or Blackburn? To give you guys a little bit of context here, Tyler and Andrew, Charles plays in an extremely shallow league. So pivoting from a guy like Yoshida to add somebody who can maybe a little bit more in terms of offering some points for him, you can pivot really quick. Charles, like I mentioned to you this morning and in the Discord, because you play in such a shallower format, it's really easy to move on from guys like Yoshida and pivot and find somebody else that you can just pluck off the waiver wire and ride the hot wave with. Again, it's one of those things too where, sometimes the best move is no move at all. So you don't always need to be adding and dropping guys left and right. Yoshida's just going through something. Obviously, he plays in a great lineup with Boston. But again, if you need I can't remember your roster off the top of my head, but if you need a starting pitcher like Blackburn, or you need a second baseman / outfielder in McNeil, or you're just looking for bench depth, I can see possibly doing that. But for the most part, like I said, I'm holding Yoshida. But if he's got 32 points in the last 30 days, I could see pivoting from him. Like I said, you're playing it in a shallower format. You can do that. So, guys, what do you think there? Let's start with you, Tyler.
It depends on replacement value. If it's a shallower league and you have some, really good replacement value players, I do like him over a McNeil and a Blackburn. I think Yoshida is around top 120 overall on the year, and I think he'll turn it up after this little streak. That being said, if you need a hot bat, I can see it. McNeil is great for more, in my opinion, a category head-to-head or roto league with that batting average, where batting average is even sort of volatile, even with a guy like McNeil. So if you're adding him based off of, his last 2 weeks or something like that, it's not a for sure thing that, the average could stick up there. Yoshida kind of has some 5-cat coverage with those 8 steals. So I do like holding Yoshida, but if you had some other names on there besides Blackburn and McNeil, then, it would change my answer. If Blackburn goes out and shoves today, that's 3 great starts in a row. And his K rate has been great this year for some reason where historically it hasn't been. So if you need an arm, I could see that pivot too. But like Mike said, yeah, if you're in a shallower league, I'd be a little bit more open-minded with a drop, but it's going to depend on, who you have in those 2 players you listed on there. I prefer Yoshida over them.
Agreed. Andrew, what's your take there?
I just see that he put it in the chat. He said Blackman, not Blackburn. I was thinking that in my head. I saw he said hitter. I wasn't sure what he meant, but yeah. As you guys said, if it's a shallower league, roster turnover is a lot easier to overcome and keep fluidity throughout the waiver wire. So if a guy's struggling like Yoshida and you're really making that playoff push, I would drop him for probably Blackman or McNeil if you need the odd hand. It's a lot easier to turn over the roster in the long run.
Well, it's worth noting too. He's killing it in his league. He's first above and beyond over everybody else. His roster's stacked. So, and there's not anybody who's really in a close second. So I think he's just trying to solidify a championship here. Obviously, anything can happen come playoff time, but I'm with you on both you guys on that. I prefer Yoshida over both McNeil and Blackman and Blackburn. So again, I think we got a whole month left in the season. He plays in a good lineup. He's a good hitter. I think he'll snap out of it soon. But at the same time too, I wouldn't bat an eye if you wanted to move on from him, Charles. So I'll recap. Long story short, I think you're holding Yoshida over those guys. And that's a slam dunk for all 3 of us there. Fogues brings up Jake Irvin or Detmers. Can I say neither? Is that an option? In some of your deeper formats, that's a tough one. I'll start with you, Tyler. What are you doing here? Who do you like better over the rest of the season, Jake Irvin or Reed Detmers?
It might be a kind of boring answer, but I'll say Jake Irvin for floor and Detmers for upside. Detmers has a really good K appeal. He can strike out 10 a game. Jake Irvin, 3 quality starts in a row I'm looking at right here. And he's a guy that I think is, especially, in a deep league, is someone to look at. I'm planning on adding him in one league as soon as the games start today in a format where I can add for next week once the ad cycle restarts over in a deeper setting. Irvin's numbers on the whole year haven't been great, but he's been, good for some time now. So I think I feel much more comfortable with Irvin. But if I'm looking for like a daily fantasy sort of gamble type mentality on a start, if Detmers has a good matchup, I think Detmers is a much better long-term asset, better dynasty asset. I think Detmers is really good, but he's just super volatile because he gets lit up, but then he also goes out and shoves. So, yeah.
Andrew, what says you, man?
This is a rough pick, but I think I'll go Irvin for this one. He's had a sub 3 ERA in August. Detmers is really someone I'm not too fond of in fantasy. Feel like we have the same experience with him every single year.
God, I'm so glad you said that. I got to pause you right there.
You're good.
I got to pause you right. Yeah, I got to pause you. I am a Reed Detmers hater, and for fantasy, I think he's more of a real life pitcher than he is in fantasy. I just don't understand the hype with this guy. When we see him every year in spring training come out and shove, and then he has a couple good starts, and then he gets absolutely lit up and rocked. So, and we've seen enough of a sample size here from him. I think there's sometimes you can use him in certain spots and some streamable options. I don't think he's going to be this ace that the Angels expected him to be, or even front of the rotation. I'll even take it as a 1 or a 2. I've been out on Reed Detmers for a while now, and I don't really understand the hype with him every year, like you had mentioned, but I just want to throw that in there, but continue, please.
Yeah, you're good. I think it was the prospect pedigree with him. I think he was. Yeah. I think he was a first round pick, I believe.
Yeah, but I'm going to say that's right.
Yeah,
he was. Yeah.
I remember he figured it out for a stretch in maybe late June. He had a couple 7-inning starts in a row, 1 run, 0 runs. But I had a standing bet with someone on Twitter. Let's check back in 2 weeks and see what happens, because I'm willing to bet that he will collapse. And sure enough. I respect the guy. He came back. He quoted the same tweet 2 weeks later. Said, "You were absolutely right." I was like, I respect you for holding your end on the bet. But yeah, I'm not too fond of Detmers. I think he shows the same thing every year. The mix of the home runs allowed and the walks comes to bite him. But I'll go Irvin for that. That's a rough pick for me, but I'll take what Tyler said for the floor of Irvin.
Yeah, I'm with you there. 3 for 3. Obviously, I've already let my thoughts known on Detmers here. And Fogues also says that Irvin gets Miami again. Yeah, I'm with Irvin. I'm on Irvin here. I don't feel good about it, but give me Irvin over Detmers for sure. I could actually make an argument maybe Detmers, and he actually says Detmers gets Philly next. I could see him getting a little bit more Ks than Irvin, but Irvin's, wouldn't say he's been great, but again, I like him over Detmers. So give me Cole Irvin there. Sorry, not Cole Irvin. Brain fart here, guys. Help me out.
Jake Irvin. Yeah.
Jake Irvin. Yeah. Sorry. So I like him over Detmers there. I appreciate the question there, folks. Folks says I don't feel good about it either. Yeah. I mean, like I said, if you play in a deep league, you really don't have a choice. But give me Irvin there. All right. Before we head off, I do want to give a quick shout out to both Tyler and Andrew. Andrew is his debut today here on the Palazzo podcast. Rocked it today. Awesome job. And again, if you guys aren't following him on Twitter, aka X, make sure you're doing that at Andrew_FBB. Guy brings it every single day with content. Always willing to help you out on your fantasy baseball questions. The questions that I mentioned on with him, I don't think I've ever seen a question that he didn't answer. So if you need help, make sure you guys are following him. Also, make sure you're following Tyler London at Backpick Fantasy as well. Also rocks it with content. These guys are, in my opinion, the up-and-coming guys in the fantasy baseball industry. So make sure you guys are following them for the quality content. And again, these guys can help you win your leagues, right? So make sure you guys are following them. And I'll make sure you're also following the Palazzo podcast here as well. We have a lot of great guests on here throughout the week between myself, Michael Govier, Britton Allen, Benjamin Chase, Sam Mershing. I mean, all these guys know their stuff. So it's a really, really, really good group of guys. Tyler, Andrew, can't thank you enough for joining, man. I gentlemen, I appreciate it. And hopefully I can have you guys on again in the near future, possibly even next week, if you guys are interested.
Absolutely. Appreciate you for having me. It's a lot of fun for the first debut. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Tyler, appreciate it, man. Thank you guys. Thank you for showing up again. I know this is your third one now with me, I believe. And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love talking Sunday baseball. Like, growing up, we all watch Sunday night baseball, and it's always a special day on Sundays, especially, some time off work. And, we're just guys that play fantasy baseball that love statistics, love numbers. Like you said last week, Mike, we're not doing this as our full-time work. We have families, we have friends, we have kids. So really just trying to get good information out there for the masses. And I think all three of our accounts are very, accessible for the common fantasy baseball player. Of course, we do a lot of deep dives too for super competitive leagues, but I feel like a lot of the content isn't necessarily geared towards 10, 12 team leagues on major platforms. And that's something that we all touch on. And yeah, Andrew's work, again, to give him some praise, especially on the dynasty side and the prospect work and just, his Twitter content as a creator, he's, in my opinion, the biggest up and comer, rookie of the year status. And then, Mike, you too, you've really hit it by storm. And I remember earlier in the year when you got going, we started interacting more. And I just love your content too. And I think you're super original. So anyone out there that's listening to this that likes fantasy baseball and likes putting out content, like get out there, start tweeting, start interacting with other creators in the industry, even the heavyweights, and they'll put you on. It's such an accepting community where we just, really desire and want more baseball heads to talk about, because at the end of the day, we just are guys that love baseball, and the more people to communicate with, it, makes it really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And well said. And I'll second that too. And I'll speak for Andrew here as well. The fantasy baseball community is such a great community of guys that are willing to help you out in terms of giving you tips, pointers. I know Govier has been vital for me in that format, but and I know for you guys as well with Sports Ethos, I'm sure there's a lot of great guys over there that are helping you guys out with advice and on your content and helping you really grow in this business, in this space, right? Like I said, we don't get paid for this stuff. This is something that's a passion of ours, and we generally really like helping people. So, yeah, I appreciate you guys coming on. Like I said, this has been an absolute blast. I love both you guys in terms of your content and just really what you guys bring to the table for fantasy baseball. So I would love to have you guys back on next week, but we'll talk about more of that offline. For Andrew, Tyler, and myself, make sure you guys are following us. MKB Fantasy at Andrew_FBB, Tyler London at Batpick Fantasy. Make sure you're following us on the Palazzo Podcast, Twitter, YouTube, Discord, the whole 9 yards. I appreciate you guys being on today, answering what you guys killed it in the live chat here with all the great questions and asking us. We didn't even get through our whole full show sheet today, but want to be cognizant of time. We're 20 minutes over. Thank you guys again. For Andrew, Tyler, and myself, appreciate it. We'll see you all next week. Have a great rest of the weekend, and peace.